I shouldn't remember the knock as clearly as I do, but I do. It was the kind of sound that splits silence in half, sharp enough to make me put my book down and just stare at the door. 3 knocks, steady, spaced out, like someone was testing if I'd answer. When I opened it, there she was. Not just a neighbor. Her. Marion lived across the hall, and if you've ever had someone who seemed untouchable, you'll understand. Mid-40s, maybe older. Dark hair always tied back like she had somewhere important to be, eyes that looked at you for a second longer than polite before darting away. I'd noticed her plenty of times in the building, always carrying groceries, always with her keys half slipping from her hand, always looking like she just stepped out of a life I wasn't supposed to know about. She cleared her throat. Sorry. Do you happen to have a wrench? My sink, well, it's not behaving. That should have been the end of it. Borrow a tool, small talk done. But my pulse did this weird, heavy thing, and before I even said yes, I was already moving aside, gesturing for her to step in. She hesitated, then crossed my doorway like it cost her something. The scent hit me first, coffee, and a trace of something warmer, maybe the kind of perfume you wear when you want to feel like yourself again. She didn't sit, didn't wander, just stood near the door, clutching her arms like she wasn't sure how long she was allowed to stay. I fumbled for the toolbox. It's nothing fancy, but it should work. My voice cracked on work, which was humiliating. Her lips curved, half amusement, half something softer. That's fine. I just didn't want to call the building manager. He lingers. Something about the way she said lingers made me wonder if she knocked here because she thought I wouldn't. Or maybe she knew exactly what she was doing. We walked across the hall together. Her apartment felt different than mine, quieter, lived in, with stacks of unread magazines and a blanket tossed across the couch like someone had been curling up there night after night. She led me straight to the kitchen, where the faucet dripped into a half-full sink. I bent over, pretending to focus on pipes. It's not that bad, I said, mostly to fill the silence. I've been ignoring it, she admitted, leaning against the counter. I ignore things I shouldn't. That line, it wasn't about the sink. I didn't look at her right away, but I felt it, the weight of what she'd just given away without meaning to. I tightened the wrench, water dripping onto my sleeve. Well, now it's fixed. Just like that? Just like that. I should have packed up, smiled, left. Instead, I stayed crouched there a moment longer, wiping my hands slowly, waiting for her to dismiss me. She didn't. When I finally stood, she was closer. Not too close, not yet, but enough that the air between us felt different. She fiddled with the corner of a dish towel, avoiding my eyes. You're younger than I expected. I laughed, too quickly. You mean too young to know what I'm doing with a wrench? Her gaze finally lifted, steady this time. I meant, younger than the men I usually let inside my apartment. The words landed like a spark catching somewhere dangerous. I didn't answer, couldn't. My chest was tight, my mouth dry. Then, before the silence could swallow us, she set the dish towel down and said, barely above a whisper, "Close the door." I should have left when she said those words. Closed the door behind me, walked back to my own life, kept her as just the woman across the hall who sometimes needed a wrench. But I didn't. I leaned against the counter, pretending like the command didn't rattle me. Her voice was calm, but the room felt charged, like a storm hovering before it broke. You don't have to, I said carefully. Her mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. No. But I want to. She busied herself with the faucet, turning it on and off like she didn't trust my repair. I noticed her hands trembled just slightly. Maybe it was the cold water. Maybe it wasn't. You know, she finally said, drying her fingers on the same towel she'd set down earlier. I didn't knock because of the sink. I swallowed. Then why? Her eyes flicked up, steady, challenging. Because it's been too quiet. And I hate the quiet. That admission, so small, but heavy, landed harder than anything else she could have said. The woman who carried herself like she had walls taller than the building was telling me she couldn't stand being alone with her own silence. I wanted to ask why. Divorce? A fight? Someone who left her? But my throat closed up. Instead, I noticed the details. How her sweater sleeve was stretched at the cuff like she'd been pulling on it absent-mindedly. How the corner of her mouth tugged downward when she thought no one was looking. How the light from the window made a soft outline around her, like she didn't belong in something as ordinary as this apartment. Maybe I'm intruding, I managed. If you were, I wouldn't have opened the door. There it was, the simplest truth, spoken so directly that I couldn't hide behind excuses anymore. My chest felt tight, like every breath was too loud. She moved past me to put the towel back, brushing my arm in the process. It was the lightest touch, barely skin to skin, but it lingered longer than it should have. My heart did this ridiculous stutter, and I hated how obvious it probably was. You remind me of someone, she said quietly, almost to herself. Someone good? I asked. Her pause stretched too long. Someone I lost. That broke something in the air. Loss sat between us now, invisible but undeniable. I didn't push, didn't pry, though my head was full of questions. Instead, I just stood there, trying to mask how much I wanted to step closer. When she finally faced me again, her expression had shifted, less guarded, more exposed. It's late, she said. I can go. The words tasted like disappointment. But then she shook her head. Stay a little longer. Please. Her fingers brushed my sleeve this time, deliberate. My voice almost betrayed me, almost let slip what I shouldn't say. I don't want to just stay. I want more. Instead, I just nodded, heart racing, trapped between what was safe and what was already slipping out of reach. Her request hung in the air, stay a little longer, and it should have been simple. But nothing about standing in that kitchen felt simple anymore. I sat at her table because it felt safer than hovering near her. The chair creaked under me, loud in the hush of the apartment. She poured 2 glasses of water and slid one across. I didn't need it, but I held it anyway, just to give my hands something to do. For a while neither of us spoke. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator, and the occasional drip from the faucet I'd supposedly fixed. I thought maybe she changed her mind about me staying, that she only wanted company to fill silence, not the kind of company I was aching to give. Then she leaned against the counter, arms folded, studying me. You're quieter than I expected, she said. I don't know what you expected. Not this. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing like she was trying to read something written across my face. You watch. You notice. It's unsettling. I wanted to defend myself, but she wasn't wrong. I did notice. The way her hair was slipping loose at the nape of her neck, the curve of her fingers wrapped around her glass, the faint line on her left ring finger where a wedding band used to be. I'm sorry, I said. I don't mean to. Her laugh was soft, but not unkind. Don't apologize for paying attention. Most men don't. That admission, that ache, cracked something open between us. I almost told her I'd noticed the loneliness in her apartment before I'd noticed the broken sink. But the words stuck in my throat. Then, a sudden interruption, a knock at her door. 3 sharp raps, too firm to ignore. She froze, tension flashing across her features. Don't move, she whispered. She crossed the room quickly, peering through the peephole. A man's voice carried through. Marion? It's Greg. I just wanted to check in. Her posture stiffened. She didn't answer, didn't open the door. She waited, holding her breath, until the footsteps faded down the hall. When she turned back, she looked different, unguarded, almost shaken. He's someone who doesn't understand boundaries, she said. I nodded, but my chest burned with something I didn't want to name. Jealousy? Protective anger? Whatever it was too strong for someone who was only supposed to be fixing her sink. You don't have to explain, I murmured. Her eyes softened at that, like I'd said exactly what she needed to hear. She walked closer, so close that her hip brushed the edge of the table where I sat. My hand, resting on the wood, twitched when her fingers grazed it, not by accident this time, not like before. "I shouldn't," she whispered, half to herself. "Me either," I whispered back. But neither of us moved away. The silence swelled, taut and dangerous. I could feel her breath when she leaned just a fraction closer, and I knew we were balanced on the thinnest line, one word or one touch away from breaking it completely. The space between us was a live wire. Her hand lingered near mine on the table, the warmth of her skin bleeding into my knuckles. I should have pulled away. Instead, I let it stay there, hovering too close, waiting for a decision neither of us seemed ready to make. "You're making this harder," she said softly. My throat tightened. "Harder than what?" "Harder than keeping things the way they should be." The way she said should, like it was a rule written in stone, like she wanted to believe it, made something reckless stir in me. "Then why ask me to stay?" Her eyes flickered, searching mine. "Because I can't stand being in this apartment alone anymore. And because you..." She broke off, biting her lip like she'd said too much. "Because I what?" I pressed. Her gaze locked on mine, raw and unshielded now. "Because you look at me like I'm not invisible. Like I'm not done." The words hit me harder than I expected. Done. As if she believed her story was already written, that her chance at wanting and being wanted had expired. "You're not," I said too quickly, too fiercely. "You're not done. Not even close." Her lips parted, like she wanted to argue, but no sound came out. Just silence, the kind that carries more than words. I leaned back, trying to steady myself. "This feels dangerous." "It is," she admitted. "You're too young." "I'm too, don't say it." I cut in. Her brow lifted. "To what?" "To everything I can't stop thinking about." The confession slipped out before I could catch it, and the second it did, I wanted to take it back. But I couldn't. It was there now, hanging between us. She drew in a slow breath, shoulders stiff, as if bracing herself. Then, with a shaky laugh, "You don't know what you're asking for." "Maybe not," I admitted. "But I know I don't want to walk back across that hall like none of this happened." That silenced her. She turned away, pacing a few steps toward the counter, gripping it like she needed something solid to hold on to. Her back was to me, but her voice carried, low and unsteady. "I've already made mistakes I can't undo. I don't want to make another." I stood then, too restless to stay seated. "So am I a mistake waiting to happen?" She turned, sharply this time, eyes blazing with a mix of anger and something far more tender. "No," she whispered. "That's the problem." The room spun with the weight of it. I didn't move, didn't breathe. She didn't either. Just the two of us, caught in that impossible space between right and wrong, safe and reckless. Finally, she asked, barely audible, but enough to split me in two. "What do we do now?" The silence that followed was louder than any answer I could have given. Her question, "What do we do now?" was still echoing in the room when her phone lit up on the counter. The vibration startled both of us. She turned, hesitated, then picked it up. Her face shifted when she saw the name. She didn't answer, but the way she stared at the screen told me everything. Whoever it was mattered. Too much. The call went to voicemail. A second later, the phone buzzed again, and this time a notification preview slid across the glass. I caught it before she turned it away. "You can't just shut me out forever." She silenced it with shaking fingers. I didn't mean to ask, but the words slipped out. "Who is he?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, "My husband." The word knocked the air out of me. "But we're separated," she cut in quickly. "He doesn't live here anymore. Hasn't for months. But he thinks if he keeps knocking, calling, showing up." She trailed off, pressing the phone flat to the counter like she wanted to crush it. Something inside me twisted. I thought I understood her loneliness, but now I saw the shadow behind it. She wasn't just hiding from silence, she was hiding from someone who refused to let go. I should have told you sooner, she said quietly. You don't know me, I began, but she shook her head. Yes, I do. Because whatever's happening right now, between us, it's not fair if you don't know the whole truth. I leaned against the table, gripping the edge until my knuckles ached. My thoughts ran wild. Married. Still tied to someone else, even if broken. Did that make me a rebound? A mistake? But then I looked at her, really looked. The tightness in her shoulders, the tired set of her jaw, the way her voice cracked when she said not fair. And I couldn't see her as anything other than what she was in this moment, a woman trying not to fall apart. You're not invisible, I said again, softer this time. Not to me. Not ever. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. Instead, she laughed, a short, broken sound. You shouldn't say things like that. You'll regret them. Maybe. But I mean them. She stepped closer then, close enough that I could feel the tremor in her when her hand brushed my arm again. Not an accident. A choice. And just when I thought she might lean in, her phone buzzed again, louder this time, insistent. The name flashed across the screen once more. She froze. So did I. The air between us thickened with everything unsaid, everything waiting. She met my eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. If I let this happen, it won't just be about us anymore. The silence that followed was unbearable, loaded, dangerous. Like the moment before glass shatters. The phone buzzed again, louder, more insistent, like it knew it was winning. Marian didn't move. Neither did I. It just sat there on the counter, vibrating against the wood until it finally went silent. Her eyes were still locked on mine, wide and torn. Do you see now? She whispered. Why this is dangerous? Yes, I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. I see it. I feel it. And I still. The words caught, but I forced them out. I still don't want to walk away. Her breath shook as she let it out. You think that's noble. But it's selfish. Because I don't know if I'm strong enough to stop you. She turned from me then, gripping the edge of the counter so tightly her knuckles whitened. I watched her shoulders tremble, and something inside me snapped, the urge to reach out, to make her stop fighting it alone. I stepped closer, not touching her yet, just close enough for her to feel me there. You don't have to be strong with me, I said. Not right now. That was all it took. She spun, faster than I expected, and suddenly I was staring at eyes wet with unshed tears, lips pressed in like she was holding back everything she'd been burying for months. You don't understand, she said, voice breaking. He left me long before he walked out. Years of being unseen. Years of wondering if I'd disappeared already. And now you. Her hand pressed to my chest, hard, trembling. Now you look at me like I'm still alive. Do you know what that does to me? I covered her hand with mine, pressing it against my heart. Maybe I do. Because you've been doing the same thing to me since the first knock on my door. For a moment, nothing existed but the sound of our breaths. The weight of everything unsaid was heavier than any kiss could have been. Her head dipped, just slightly, like she was leaning toward me, but then she stopped. Froze. Her hand slipped from my chest. We can't, she said. But it wasn't conviction in her voice, it was fear. Then tell me to leave, I whispered. Her silence stretched. She closed her eyes, shaking her head. I can't. I didn't kiss her. Not yet. Instead, I just stood there, both of us suspended in a choice either could finish making. And maybe that was the choice itself, not perfect, not clean, but real. Finally, she exhaled, raw and trembling. Promise me something. Anything. If we do this, no lies. No pretending it doesn't matter. I nodded, my throat thick. I promise. The silence that followed wasn't empty this time. It was full. Full of everything we hadn't said, everything we were finally letting ourselves feel. That night didn't end with fireworks. No grand declarations, no dramatic kiss. Just two people standing in a quiet apartment, staring at each other like the world had shifted under their feet. And in a way it had. Marian let me stay. Not as a lover, not yet, but as something she hadn't allowed herself in a long time. Company. Presence. Proof that she wasn't invisible. We sat back down at her table, our glasses of water still half full, condensation pooling into little rings on the wood. For the first time since she knocked on my door, she looked at me without her guard up. She told me about the years of silence in her marriage, the way a person could sleep next to you but never see you. She admitted how many nights she'd stared at her own door, wondering if anyone would ever knock for her again. And I told her the truth I hadn't said out loud before, that I'd noticed her long before that night. The way she always carried herself like she was bracing against something invisible. The way her laugh, the few times I'd overheard it in the hallway, sounded like it didn't belong to this building but somewhere freer, lighter. The more we spoke, the more the tension shifted. Not gone, it was still there, thick and undeniable, but it felt cleaner. Honest. Not a secret pressed against our ribs, but a fragile truth laid on the table between us. At some point, she reached across and touched my hand. This time, she didn't pull away. Neither did I. We just let our fingers rest together, simple and steady, as if that small connection was enough to say, yes. I see you. And I want to keep seeing you. The phone stayed silent after that. Maybe her husband had given up for the night, maybe not. But it didn't matter. What mattered was the way she looked at me, like she'd finally let herself believe that she wasn't done, that her story wasn't finished. When I finally left, it wasn't with regret. It was with a promise. Not the kind you carve into stone, but the kind you carry in your chest, quiet and steady, that we'd let this grow, not rush it, not bury it. That we'd give it a chance to become something real. I walked back across the hall and closed my door, heart pounding, hand still warm from hers. And I knew, even if everything else went wrong, even if the world judged, even if it all fell apart, this night would stay with me. Because it was the first time I realized that sometimes, the most dangerous secret isn't what we hide. It's what we finally dare to want. So, what do you think? Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?